Okay. I don't believe not taking the vaccine is selfish for two main reasons. One is because a person has a right to bodily autonomy, and a person's rights and liberty should not depend on vaccination status. And also because young people have suffered quite enough, not only from health perspective, but from just life in general. So young people have sacrificed enough, so they shouldn't be almost forced or guilted or obligated to do something they don't want to do. Although most of them will do it anyway.
I think it would be selfish to not take the vaccine whilst it's been offered, since when going on a holiday in certain countries, you're required to take a vaccine anyway, for the health of yourself and others. Similarly, with taking the COVID-19 vaccine, you're protecting yourself and others.
Welcome to the Face Off, a show on common sense where we bring people with different views together to talk about current affairs. Today we're talking about vaccines. So I'm Aaron Fenton Hewitt, and this is my colleague Chude Obwaya. Is that how you pronounce it, bro? Sorry,
Yeah, that's perfect. No, that's
Obwaya,
perfect.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. The government has said this week vaccines will be available for over 21s, and many people are excited about this, but they're also considering, is a vaccination necessary for young people? People who discourage others from having a coronavirus vaccine, they're considered to be quite selfish and stupid. According to a survey of public attitudes, 4 in 10 Britons think people who discourage the public from getting vaccines are stupid, from a study found by King's College London and Ipsos Mori. So today we're talking about, is it selfish for young people to reject the vaccine? So I'll let you go first, Judy. What do you think about this?
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction, Aaron. I think it would be selfish for young people to not take the vaccine now it's been made readily available to them, simply because with the process in which the government has decided to go down, vaccines are seemingly the best way to come out of the pandemic as a country, and also as a globe. So I think it is the best way currently to be able to get to some kind of normality in the near future.
I mean, some people would argue that young people, there's two ways to look at this. One is, young people have already sacrificed quite a bit in terms of wanting to taking the vaccine. We had a period of time at the height of it where, it was young people that were being sacrificed for the sake of the older folk and the vulnerable. Mainly people in care homes, the elderly, and people with chronic illnesses. So, for example, I take myself for an example. I'm type 1 diabetic.
Okay.
If I wasn't, I probably wouldn't have had the vaccine yet. And I've had both my shots already, so I'm cool in that regard. So there's that argument. The other argument, slightly unrelated, is the idea that a person's to get back to normal, society needs to at large take the vaccine, which means that the element of should a person's rights or civil liberties be dependent upon vaccination status. Some people have described it as a form of health fascism in a way, where people who choose to say no will essentially be second-class citizens, as they won't be allowed to go into areas such as like Wembley Stadium, for example, or venues or nightclubs or this kind of stuff. So that's one argument. But back to what we were saying before, I'm not quite sure if it's selfish. I think young people have sacrificed enough. In the fact that younger folk have basically been we're the last group. We're the group that is not as big of a priority as the older folk, and yet because we've spent so much time looking after older folk, not that we're not supposed to do that anyway, but because of all that time, lots of businesses have been destroyed, universities in chaos. So we've done quite enough in that regard. So
yeah,
it's a tricky one.
I mean, I think we should try to avoid to get into some sort of like sacrifice Olympics, because I think each demographic, whether you want to go to gender, age, ethnicity, would all say that they've sacrificed in some way, shape, or form. I think everyone has different needs. Different groups will require different responses at different times. Like you said, for yourself, you're type 1 diabetic. For myself, I've had both my shots too, because I was working at the NHS earlier in the year. So I was offered it as a frontline worker. So though I am quote unquote healthy, as in I don't have any sort of immediate health issues, am I more important than somebody who doesn't have any health issues, or I might not be in immediate danger because I'm not in an area where the prevalence of corona was high? I think all things aren't created equal all the time. People have there's going to be different. There's going to be people that will require more assistance at a particular time. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that young people have sacrificed more. I will say, in what way? Everyone has been affected.
Well, I mean, that's true. Everyone's been affected, but then at the same time, there's been more support for different groups, and you could argue that although the elderly deserve support, it's not as if we're saying the elderly matter more than younger people.
Sure.
From a moral standpoint, because I understand that we have a duty of care to our vulnerable, but then that doesn't mean that the people who are not directly affected don't matter at all. So
Agreed.
we understand. I perfectly understand the logic about, we have to prioritize some people, but the difference between treating some people as if they don't matter as much and treating them as they don't matter at all. We're talking about, not young people in general, in terms of you're probably a fit, healthy young man yourself, so you wouldn't be as much of a priority. But I'm talking about other things as well. Not even from a health perspective, things that have had a knock-on effect from lockdown, such as universities, for example, or the social interactions that we have, the job market, things like that. We have been affected. So I understand that health is a very, very, very important part of society, but it's not the only part we should be considering. And ultimately, the older folk, respectfully to them, will not be the ones to say, okay, well, we'll get a different job and you'll do this and you'll do that. Because it's not as easy as just saying that you'll get your job back. Well, some people don't get their job back. Some people's businesses have been ruined forever.
Yeah. No,
am I supposed to be happy for you and say, everything's okay?
Yeah.
If you're alive. I hate to say it, but controversially, I would say being alive in itself is not enough, because the difference between being alive and just existing, if that makes sense. The difference between the two. So
I get what you mean. I think what I would say is that more needs to be done, not less. Because like you rightly said, there are certain groups that need priority over other groups, right? People who are younger and healthier have the privilege of responding or reacting to COVID in a better way than elderly people or people who are more at risk due to health reasons. So I think that we do have a responsibility to support those people. But you're right. I don't think only in health. I don't think only people's health matter. People's livelihoods matter. People's just quality of life matter. So I do think more support needs to be done. But in this case, if the opportunity to get the vaccine is readily made available, whilst I do understand people do have certain apprehension towards taking the vaccine, and I think there are some valid apprehension towards taking it, I think more than just I've sacrificed enough is not necessarily a good reason, especially when there's a consequence for you not taking it. So
this is my other issue. Sorry to interrupt, but
no,
this is my other issue. I am not saying for a second that I'm pro-vax in that regard. I believe that it's the right thing to do for your health. And many people, in fact, I'll probably say the majority of people have taken the vaccine. But there is a line that I don't cross where we say the reason why you should take a vaccine is because of your health. Primarily, that should be probably your only reason for taking the health. For your health. The reason why you shouldn't take a vaccine is not because if you don't, then certain rights will be taken away from you. Because a lot of young people see the concept of the vaccine as a sort of passport or a sort of ticket back to a sense of normality. If we go down that road, we're saying, well, it's not really for health, then it's for our own personal it's just for living life as normal. Now, some people would say, for religious or otherwise, some people may be a bit more reserved about the vaccine. For whatever the reason is, you don't really need to justify your right to exercise body autonomy. You get to decide what goes in your body or not. You can exercise that right. But if we're
Sure.
now saying that there is a reason, for whatever ever reason, that a young person decides, I don't want to have the vaccine,
Hmm.
other rights should not be taken away from them because of that. And this is the whole
Sure.
point. We call it, the King's College London research said that people who discourage the public from getting vaccinated are stupid. And
Yeah.
the reason I question the motive, because if they're talking about it from a health perspective,
Hmm.
then I wouldn't call them stupid. I would just say that I don't agree, because
Yeah.
we have all kinds of conspiracy theories where we hear people, talking about how the vaccine has microchips in it and, it's related to 5G, all this kind of nonsense.
Hmm.
People ask, like, why would the vaccine made so quickly? Reason why is because the entire world was working at the same time, and
Hmm.
this is the biggest vaccination program in history, and
Hmm.
we have the current technology now that we didn't have a couple hundred years ago.
Hmm.
So you have a global effort combined with technology. Of course, it's going to be quick. It stands to reason.
Hmm.
Okay. I don't believe not taking the vaccine is selfish for two main reasons. One is because a person has a right to bodily autonomy, and a person's rights and liberty should not depend on vaccination status. And also because young people have suffered quite enough, not only from health perspective, but from just life in general. So young people have sacrificed enough, so they shouldn't be almost forced or guilted or obligated to do something they don't want to do. Although most of them will do it anyway.
Hmm. I think it would be selfish to not take the vaccine whilst it's been offered, since when going on a holiday in certain countries, you're required to take a vaccine anyway, for the health of yourself and others. Similarly, with taking the COVID-19 vaccine, you're protecting yourself and others, um, not only immediately, but also in the future for people who are suffering or and are who will suffer and are suffering from long COVID, due to the effects they've had, post COVID. And additionally, I think freedom of choice, I 100% stand for that, but that doesn't alleviate you from freedom of consequence. And so if you decide not to take it, that is absolutely your right. I stand, with you for the right for you not to take the COVID-19 vaccine. But if you don't get to choose what the consequences of that are as well. You can't have your cake and eat it too in that regard. So I think it should be a decision that people take their time to think about why they don't want to take it, and think of, I guess, to use a cliche, the greater good and how it can be beneficial to both themselves, and their families and the people around them.